I love thinking about all the old rhymes and sayings that color childhood. One of the great things about Solomon is that Solomon will come home sometimes with these, new rhymes he's learned, and they're all the ones that, of course, we said growing up. There's one rhyme that I heard often in my young age, all about the development of a sense of politeness and a sense of manners. This little saying was meant to teach children the value of tempering their excitement with patience and calmness. This was done in the form of a rhetorical question. Gimme, gimme never gets. Don't you know your manners yet? Do you remember that one? Does anybody know the comeback? Because there's an answer to this. I remember I had to actually search for it. The answer was this. Yes, I do. Not right now. Gimme, gimme anyhow. In this banter, the rhyming child, you can kind of picture this child, right? This picture so gripped with excitement and anticipation, almost uncontrollably. In the most childlike way, they see the entire future of what it means to be a kid, all wrapped up in whatever it is they're saying gimme for. That excited anticipation is echoed in our reading from Isaiah this morning. In fact, as I was researching this passage, I learned that this passage is often called the Song of Splendid Impatience. Isn't that beautiful? That's great. Isaiah explodes and says, I'm not going to keep silent. I'm not going to remain quiet until God restores Israel. There's a sense that Isaiah is begging for God to come and redeem the people that he delights in. Isaiah is singing, gimme, gimme, gimme. And there's the assurance that this is what God wants to do. That's the splendid thing about this passage. That kind of cry of gimme, gimme, gimme is done in the context of God's desire to bless, God's desire to redeem and rejoice over Israel. And so it speaks comfort and hope to them who are in exile. I invite you to pick up your pew Bibles and turn to Isaiah chapter 62. One of the things that we need to remember about this reading and about a lot of the readings, particularly in the Old Testament but also in the New, is that Isaiah here is speaking on behalf of God. He's a prophet of God. He's speaking to a community. This isn't about individuals. This is about God speaking comfort and hope to a community of faith, to a nation. And so for us, when we read this or when we sit and listen to this, we hear it not as individuals sitting by ourselves in a pew. We hear it in the same manner as a community of faith. Now, the nation of Israel, they had been placed in exile. Their lives had been completely turned upside down. Their land had been left completely desolate. They had been taken away from their land. They had felt that God had completely abandoned them. And of course, as time goes on, as old generations die away and the new generations are born and begin to be raised within the exile, those feelings of abandonment, those feelings of desolation, of hopelessness, intensify. So there's a sense of communal hopelessness, communal despair for Israel at this point. Let me ask you a question. Is there any sense of hopelessness in our community of faith? Is there any feelings that, well, God's just not here? Sometimes we can feel that. Sometimes it's easy to feel despair and hopeless. We feel that when we hear reports or talk in big church circles about how, well, the numbers of the institutional church, they're continually going down, and, volunteers are not coming forward, and the institutional church maybe has had its day. Even here, when we look around and we see that maybe there's not as many people as there used to be, it's easy for us to feel hopeless. Churches feel this when a pastor retires or moves on, right? And the church enters into a time of interim ministry. It's easy to feel, well, priest is leaving, God's leaving too. There's no more future for us, right? Or is that just me? Am I just putting that onto the situation? But it's easy for that to sometimes be felt. Or when we talk about our building project. Has anybody ever heard the quip, "We've been here before"? Anybody? Anybody hear that? Has anybody heard anybody say, "I'll believe it when I see it"? Right? And those statements, they're understandable. And they're valid. It's easy to feel disheartened when, as a community, we kind of feel that maybe we're just spinning our wheels a little bit. That's what Israel felt in the exile. Israel felt that they were spinning their wheels of faith. And they were going nowhere because there was nowhere to go to. The song of Splendid Impatience declares God's desire for the community. Isaiah rings out, "For Zion's sake, I will not keep silent. For Jerusalem's sake, I will not remain quiet until her righteousness shines like the dawn and her salvation like a burning torch." The statement here, there's a fabulous feeling of anticipation, but also assurance that this is what God wants to do for the community. And this is what God will do with the community. And in Israel, as we see, this happens. The exile does end, and they are redeemed, and they are brought back home. So I think we can claim this verse for ourselves. God's desire is for our righteousness, our relationship with God, to shine like the dawn. Have you ever had the blessing of seeing the sunrise? Anyone? It's fabulous. It's glorious. It's great. When I was a curate on Vancouver Island, I decided to lead, one of the things I decided I wanted to do was lead an Easter morning sunrise. Alicia's laughing at me because she knows the story. I decided to lead an Easter morning sunrise service, and we decided to do it on the beach. And so that meant, now sunrise is not, oh, let's all get together at 8:30. Sunrise is sunrise. And so we gathered at the beach at sunrise, which I think that year was an insane hour, like 5:10 or something like that. So we gathered on the beach at 5:10, and we watched our watches, and when the clock struck 5:10, the time of sunrise, we started singing. "Holy, holy, holy, all the saints adore thee. Early in the morning, our song will rise to thee." And in that moment, the sun broke over the mountains and flooded us all in light. The darkness of night was pushed away. We were bathed in light and warmth, standing on this beach right beside the water. It was glorious. The dawn is something that everybody sees. The dawn is something that everybody can experience. And I have not yet met anybody who says, "You know what? The dawn is really not my thing." And I think it calls to us. Have you ever had the experience of waking up after a night of sleep, and you don't wake up because of your alarm, and you don't wake up because of a noise in the house, you wake up because your body responds to the light that's coming in through the window? Have you ever had that? The dawn, I think, calls to us. God's desire for Israel was that